Okay, guys. So, last time I did a video, it was supposed to be part 3. It ended up not being part 3. I was sharing a testimony. And so, God is totally and completely guiding these things. So, hopefully right now, we can go into part 3. Because I'm trying to get into the questions about, okay, the notes are Freedom from Fear. Leslie Held Teaching Center has a YouTube channel, and you can get all of his primary teachings from these, about these notes on that channel and stuff. Anything that I have is because he's already taught it, and I'm trying to get into like a further elaboration of what he was talking about. So let me show you the notes again. I'm always going to show you the notes, and then I'm always going to finish with the flyer that we have of the tabernacle, because we want you to come and get fed and get real feeding, real biblical feeding, okay? Real teaching, no gimmicks, no performances, no, you know, I don't know what else word. You're not going to get anybody trying to entertain. It's not an entertainment church, okay? We focus on growing you, not entertaining you, okay? If you go to a church that entertain you, they're not feeding you. I guarantee it, okay? If you're a mother or a father, a real mother or a real father, and I say that because, you know, you birthed a child or adopted the child, you are a female and you are a male that are fully, completely involved in your child's life, okay, and you are a good parent, you are not going to be your child's best friend until they get old enough to start to know better and start to realize that you're the best thing that ever happened to them, okay? We're supposed to be like God to our children and teach them the love of God and everything like that. So if you're sitting there entertaining your child and always giving your child junk food, never actually giving them nutritious meals, guess what? You're not a good parent. So if you're going to a church that is full of flashing lights, entertainment, you know, performances, they're worried about their performance and how they look and if they can, you know, give you the best shows, they're not a feeding church. They're not a church that feeds. Okay? That's like going to a freaking bar. You know, just because the bar has food doesn't mean it's nutritious. Alright. This is the notes. Okay? Freedom from fear. We are going over this freedom from fear over and over and over again. Let me get a little close. This is how you mail in and ask for notes. This is how you call in and get information about their YouTube channel and about their website and about all of the teachings that Leslie has done and where you can locate them. So, we have gone through so much of this already. We do have a number 4 and a number 5 yet, because I've been doing 1 and 2. Last 2 videos, part 1 and part 2, were about number 1 and number 2. So there's probably going to be, yeah, there's going to be one more video at part 4. Okay, part 4 is going to include 4 and 5 on this. Part 3 might be a little bit long, you know. So we're out learning how to trust God. Okay, see that? We're at this part. Bata. Okay, bata. Let me tell you what bata is. Bata is to, when you get to that point with God where, like I said before, you no longer believe in God, okay? You have to stop believing in God at one point in your life. Okay, and believing in Him as in existence. Okay, that's for new Christians. That's for spiritual children. You know, children, people that are new in God, newly saved. You know, believing God is great. That's a great first step. So I'm not knocking, you know, if you're a new believer or if you believe in God, I'm not knocking that. But there comes a point in time where you have to start walking, okay? You spend only so many years as an infant when you're in the physical realm. In the spiritual realm, you only have so much time where it's acceptable to be an infant. Then you have to start eating the solid foods. Okay? Then you have to start not viewing God as a myth or as a Santa Claus or a Easter bunny or a tooth fairy or anything like that. You know, you have to get beyond that. Okay? So, like I said, step one is believing in God, acknowledging that He's there, that He's alive, and that He's real. Then you have to get beyond belief. You have to stop staying in the state of mind where you just believe that God is. Okay? And what I'm saying is, you have to get to the point where Noah was. Okay? If we look at the story of Noah, Noah had such a relationship with God that he stopped believing that God is. He got to the point where he knew. He knew. Okay? He got to the point where he knew beyond a shadow of a doubt. Nobody could tell him anything. When God said something, he did it. Nobody could sit there and say, well, maybe you should stop building the ark. And he was like, he wasn't like, oh, you're probably right. This seems a little psychotic. Never rained before. Never, you know, it never rained like that before. Never been a flood. They've never seen anything to that extent. It was always enough rain. It was always enough weather. It was always enough this. You couldn't tell him to stop building that ark for anything. Do you know, can you imagine back in the day? Like, look how we are now with how things, like things that we think are crazy or absurd. You know, we all have a whole, like, posting on it. We make videos about it. We do blogs about it. We do all kinds of things. And when we hear something that is ridiculous, okay, if what happened at that day, if the media and social media was advanced now, back in those days like it is now, then there would be videos of all over. Look how stupid this man is. He's building a boat. Why is he building it so big? What does he think he's going to do? You know, it's just crazy. They're going to think that he's crazy. He's going to, you know, he probably would have been admitted to the psych ward a few times, you know, and it's like, but he didn't let any of those ridicules stop him. Because you got to imagine, those people back then, like, they were not walking with God. Okay? They were not walking with God. So for them, somebody to tell them, oh, say, God told me to build an ark. God told me to build this huge boat. And I'm going to have all these animals on it. And I'm going to have, you know, everything on it. I'm sure so many people, family, friends, he probably has some close friends and be like, dude, you're fucking psychotic. Why are you building a boat? No. He walked with God, and he was probably ministering to those people about everything that God showed him, about the revelations that God has given him, about everything that God said as far as the up and coming flood and why he had to prepare. So he was at the point in his life where he knew that God is. Okay? Even though Noah may not have known exactly what God was, who God was, or anything else about God, but he knew that God was there. As much as we know, stick our hand in front of our face, we're going to see that it's there. Okay? You stick anything in front of your face, you're going to see that whatever that object you put in your face is there. That's how sure that Noah was about God's instructions for him. And he knew that God is. And whatever it was to him at that time, he knew. He had a knowledge. He had a surety. He had complete and total assurance that God is. So much so that even God referred to him at his time as blameless. You know, God said that in Noah's time he was blameless. Can you imagine that? Before the word was written, before Christ came, before the first, you know, Christian, it was Noah. Noah was the one. He was the only one at that time. And all of his knowledge and experience and relationship that he has had with God, obviously he shared it with his family, because God instructed him to bring his family aboard, and their family, his children and their wives and their children's children, all that stuff. Okay, so there was no Bible, there was no ministry, there was no abundance of sin. There was an abundance of sinful nature and abundance of lawlessness. Okay, that's how we know. For someone like Noah to say, oh, God showed me this and he told me to build an ark, they were probably like, yeah, like thinking, they probably walked by him and was like, oh, somebody's elevator does not go to the top floor. You know what I'm saying? Can you imagine? Like, I'm sure that they were sitting there behind his back, snickering at him, laughing at him, just making crude comments and jokes, you know, talking about like, oh, you think, oh, where's the flood coming, you know, all that stuff, just teasing him. I'm pretty sure they were, because they didn't have regard for God and what he wanted in his direction and his wisdom and his will. They had no regard for it. That's why God had the flood coming, because of their fully sinful nature. Okay, so they were probably sitting there just saying all kinds of stuff to him. You know, my dad used to say lights on but nobody's home. You know, they were probably walking by thinking like, wow, he's really got a couple screws loose upstairs. You know, I'm saying. But he kept going. He kept going. For however long it took for him to build that, he kept going. So he had no internal reaction or extreme external reaction or extreme internal reaction about what they said. You know, it did not affect him. He knew, because he was so sure and so certain that God was and is, that all that snickering, everything that probably happened, it probably didn't even faze him. He probably didn't even, he had no feeling for or against it whatsoever. He had no response, I imagine, internally, because in order for you to take on that magnitude of a task, you have to have some tough skin. You gotta have some tough skin so you can tell yourself, no, this is not, you know, this is not a godly thing what they're saying. I know what God said. No, I'm not going to waver about what God told me. No, I'm not going to back off. No, I'm not going to back down. And he chose to go along with it anyway. So, when you are fearful, okay, when you're fearful, you become full of doubt, full of torment. Torment of any kind is primarily started with fear. Fear of whatever that thing that is that torments you. And when you feed it, you can feed into that fear by entertaining it, by, you know, talking about it, by thinking about it all the time, by, you know, acting out on that fear, okay, by just anything that causes you to just be very introverted and stuff to yourself. You know, there's just, and I'm not talking about like people that are shy or something like that, you know, just choosing to not associate yourself with other people like I did for quite some time. You know, that's something I started choosing because I thought that was the right way to go. But no, instead the fear in my heart increased big time. I had major bouts of fear in my heart after everything that was happened to me. I let that fear build and build and build and build, because I never talked to anybody. I never wanted to talk to anybody. I didn't trust the people who claimed that I could talk to them. I claimed that they could talk to them. A lot of times people would say, oh yeah, you can talk to me, and tell them, and then they go and use information to stab me in the back. And so it's like, that's why I came up with that, you know, people who claim that I can talk to them kind of thing. You know, family members that are supposed to be there for you and not. You know, you don't have anybody to turn to and stuff like that. You become very, like, you choose to stay away from people. You know, and it's just crazy. So that leaves you full of doubt and full of torment. You doubt that you are good enough to be around anybody. You have the torment of, you know, being abandoned, being left out, being rejected, being pushed to the side, being you know, just being made to feel like you're not good enough. That stuff completely consumes you, and it consumes your heart and mind, and it can become very, very restricting to yourself. It can become sabotage. Your fear can sabotage the gifts and calling that God has for you. Your doubt and worry and shame can cause you to run away from God and turn away from God in a way that you don't know how to receive what He has for you. And that's all resulted from fear. All of that. Now, what's the other one? Hasa. Okay? Hasa it means to run to the rock and seek refuge in God. Okay, this is when, okay, maybe you just got out of an addiction. Okay, no matter what it is. Addictions can be drugs, and it can be habits, and it can be bad thoughts, and it can be anything negative that's hurting yourself that you just have a hard time stopping. Those are addictions. And addictions come from fear. You know, your fear of dealing with whatever it is that you're trying to hide from. You use it as a shelter. You use it as a means of escape. You know, you try to use fear as a way to escape whatever you are afraid of and whatever you're afraid of feeling, thinking, doing, anything. That is fear. So, let's say you were addicted to... Okay. I'll use my example. I was not addicted to weed because I never had withdrawals or anything from it. But let's just imagine I was. Okay, let's just say that. I'll use my own example. So, let's say I'm addicted to weed and I get recovered from it. You know, I'm recovered from it, like maybe newly recovered within the first week or two. Because usually I hear always that's the hardest for people who are truly addicts. So, let's just say that. Okay, and I started smelling it because it's around everywhere, especially now that people are using it more for medicinal purposes, especially now that it is on the verge of becoming, you know, more of a recreational thing like it has in some states already. It's like if I smelled that, if I had a real addiction to it, if I smelled it, if I thought about it, I would not be able to contain myself as far as, you know, not going to get it, as far as not to go buy it and you know, roll up a joint, roll up a blunt, whatever it is, you know, I would do whatever it takes to get it. Now, Hasa is when you have that feeling, but you recognize it, and you're like, in your heart, you're like, I really don't want to go back there. I don't want to be that way. I don't want to fall back after all the hard work I did to get out of it. Hasa is when you run to God and say, God, this is surrounding me and it's tormenting me and it's bothering me and I want you to help me. God, deliver me from this temptation. He can do that. He has done that with me. Oh my gosh. Okay, cigarettes. I used to smoke big time. I used to smoke big time, and I was a stress smoker, and you know, and every excuse I could find smoker. Sorry, dropped something. So anyways, I had high addiction to cigarettes. I mean, I could not go without cigarettes. I would become very irritable. I would become like snapping every 5 seconds kind of thing. Like, I was so angry and I was so upset. Sorry. and I'd become so angry and so upset and so frustrated about not having cigarettes, I would be screaming and hollering at anybody. You know, like, I really want to choke, like, any next person that even breathed at me in the wrong direction. I was ready to choke them, okay? Cigarettes were a big thing. Before I got my final deliverance form, and I say final because I did fall back, and instead of running to God, like huzzah, to say, God, I'm tempted, I can't stay away from cigarettes, I'm having a hard time, blah, 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 I excused it because I said, oh, well, I'm going through this right now, and I'm really stressed out, so let me just grab a pack of cigarettes. And then I would say, I would always say to myself, actually, it's not the first time or the second time, every time I would say to myself, well, I'm only going to do it during the time that I'm stressed out. When the stress goes, then I'll stop. You know, I always told that to everybody. That's what I said all the time. Oh, you're smoking again? Yeah, I'm going through some stuff, so, you know, or I would try to hide it as long as possible until I felt like giving it up again. You know, I tried all kinds of things. So, the refuge is the one last final time that God warned me about smoking cigarettes, and he said, again, he was telling me to stop smoking. He said, just put it down. He's like, I'm strong enough to help you. Stop wanting that. And I wasn't ready. In my heart, I wasn't ready. I was like, no, I'm like, that's okay. I'll put it down and stuff. I don't really need it. I lied to myself. I said, oh no, I don't really need it. I can put it down and I'll pick it back up again. No problem. That would last, you know, usually like a month, 2 months, whatever. And then right after that, you know, some addictions take more than 21 days to get over. Because there were times where I would go 3 or 4 months, not smoke, and then something would trigger it, and then I'd fall right back into it. But last time God said to me, if you don't stop smoking cigarettes, you're going to end up dying of a heart attack very soon. And I was only in my 20s, my late 20s, when God gave me that revelation. And I was like, you know what? I said, I need help then. I need help to not want it anymore, because the smell of it would make me want it. The smell, it would come into your taste buds, it would come into, and it's the nicotine that I craved. And so the smell of the burning nicotine and tobacco is something that I started craving anytime I smelled it at all. Anytime I came across it in any way, I was instantly wanting it so bad, and it was a serious addiction of mine. And so he has done this before, but this was the last and final time, and I've never picked him up since. Because he even killed my desire to want them. Like, he went in deep this time. First time, it was just put them down. Okay, so I threw almost a full pack of cigarettes away. They were the higher end cigarettes and stuff, which cigarettes are cigarettes. But they were the, you know, like the more expensive brands and stuff like that, more premium quality cigarettes. And so I would say, okay, I took that whole pack of cigarettes, it was almost completely full, and I threw it in the garbage, and I didn't pick it up again. That lasted for a month, maybe 2 months. And then I got to the point where I was like, oh, okay, well, I got stressed out about something. And I said, you know what, and back then, you know, there was a certain person that I continued to fight with in my life, and because I couldn't be around this person for like 5 minutes, and we were at each other's throat, calling, like, saying mean things to each other. This person was constantly insulting me and putting me down, just finding any ways to jab at you. And this is the kind of person that you would not think that this person would say something like that to me in particular. I mean, if I would say the relationship, I don't want to hurt that person's feeling or put them on blast, but you know, between myself and that person, we didn't get along for many, many, many years. I mean, even now, we still have a hard time getting along. But that would be an excuse. You know, I'd spend too much, what I would think was too much time around that person, and then all of a sudden, I'm back smoking. Because I'm like, you know what, I can't deal with being around that person. If I have to be around that person, then I'm going to start smoking. I did that like 3 or 4 times before it finally really got into me. So the last time he told me that, I was like, God, I really need your help then. I'm truly addicted to cigarettes, and I can't put these down. I'm having a really hard time. So when I finally admitted to him that when I finally admitted to him that I needed help and that I was addicted, then I just gave it to him. I gave it up. I ran to him so I could just give it up and let it go. And that is what Hasa is like. When you cannot take it, when you have had it and you're sick and tired of being sick and tired of the same thing, of the same habits, of the same situations, and you just go to God and say, you know what? I'm done. I can't do it anymore. I'm done. I'm over. I'm over how things are going. I'm over the circumstances. I'm over always going through the same thing over again. And I'm always doing the same thing over again. I'm just so sick of it. He can change you, and he can get into you deeply and completely deliver you from whatever it is you're struggling with. He has the power to do that. He is God. He is a big God, and he is a strong God, and he is strong enough to help you overcome your things, your problems. So that is Hasa. The best example of Hasa is Esther. In the book of Esther, Esther sought refuge in God. He sought refuge, and he was there for her. He delivered her. First of all, he knew what was about to happen. God is Pantocrator. He is in control of everything. He knows. Okay? And she was born Jewish. She was raised by her uncle Mordecai. I can't remember what happened to her parents, but she ended up being raised by her uncle Mordecai. And, so she believed in God. And when she got favor with the king very quickly. So he he put her in a place of authority. He made her queen. He knew what was in the heart of Haman, and so he removed Queen Vashti, put Esther there, and gave her favor, great favor. She was sought as being beautiful. She was complimented for being beautiful, and she went in there very basic. She didn't lavish herself up with jewelry or anything like that. She went in as simple can be. And she was that beautiful that her simple beauty amazed and astonished the king. And he was just so smitten by her. And so when she was in that place of authority, the situation came up with Haman that he wanted to annihilate the Jews. He wanted to completely get rid of them. That's always the case with Jews, that they're always put in that situation where, people are trying to get rid of them completely. Even to this day, it's crazy. But she knew that God had the power. So how she didn't necessarily run to him, like running up on her feet and everything. She ran to him in desperation, and she ran to his power and who he was as God to her. And she fasted. She fasted with her people and with her servants, and she prayed and sought God's direction. And so God gave her more favor. And she went to see the king, and she created a banquet for him, and he gave her favor right away. He had so much favor for her. The king had so much favor for her that, he was offering her, if she said, I want half the kingdom, he would have given it all to her, just because he was so infatuated. Well, God humiliated Haman. He used Mordecai to humiliate Haman. And the good things that Mordecai has done for the king was acknowledged. And Haman ended up parading Mordecai throughout the city, saying, this is what the king does for those he wishes to favor, those he wishes to honor. And it was so humiliating for him. Imagine having to sing praises to your mortal enemy. And that's basically what it was like for him. Like, he was praising his someone he despised so much. He made gallows, okay, huge gallows, because he planned on hanging Mordecai. And he was so convinced that he was going to get permission from the king to hang Mordecai, and he was stuck on that. So but because of God's favor with Esther and for Esther, and what he has already given King favor with her, she was shielded, and so was all of her people. And so when she sought God, he placed her above everybody else, even before she needed to seek him. But she did. She ran to him and sought him, and the Jews ended up defeating their enemies. And some people sided with the Jews, you know, in their support and everything, because they knew what happened. And the Jews ended up winning and stuff. So that became, you know, what they celebrate now is Purim. That's why every Purim they always read the story of Esther. Now, so because she sought God and she ran to God, he gave her vengeance. He avenged her by humiliating Mordecai, and then ended up humiliating Haman, and then he ended up using Haman's gallows for himself and his kids. So God allowed the king to use Haman's own gallows for himself and his children. Now, the other one, the last one for this teaching, and this is going to be the end of it, it's going to be a little bit short today, is Aman. Aman is when you get to that final point with God, okay, where you have surety, you have strength in your surety, and you cannot move. You cannot move. When you get to the point where you cannot be moved. Now, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, these are people also know them as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They had surety in the strength of God. So much so that they chose not to waver in their trust with God. So when the king was demanding that they worship the king or be, you know, thrown into the fiery pit, they refused, and they stood on the strength and surety of the power of God. So they were immovable because they knew beyond a shadow of a doubt, beyond any fear, beyond anything logical in their minds, they knew that God comes through for them, that he was that strong. They knew that he was that kind of God, that he could change their circumstances and stick up for them in their circumstances. So, fully clothed, they were cast into the fiery furnace. I'm sorry, I'm like reading it correctly, but I was saying it backwards. Anyways, they were tied up, okay? On top of that, the king demanded that the furnace was heated up 7 times its normal heat. I mean, he was looking to basically burn them into dust, and then have that dust burn into nothing, okay? Right. That's his desire. That's what his desire was. So, they threw them in the fiery furnace. Now, they were already freed before they were even thrown into the fiery furnace. The angel of God was there waiting for them. Because when they got in there, not only were their ties removed, okay, they were walking around freely, worshiping and praising God in the fire with the Spirit of God with them. The angel of God was with them, walking around in the fire, praising God, singing worship to him. The king was, what? He's like, I thought we only threw 3 people in there. He asked his guards, didn't we only throw 3 people in there? And he was like counting on his fingers. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, you know, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. But there's a 4th person walking there. He could see the silhouette of the angel of God walking around in the fire with them. So he's like, what is this? This has to be their God sticking up for them. That's the conclusion he got. He got that revelation that this is the God that they're worshiping that is walking around in the fire with them. Right? Isn't that what he does for us? When things get heated, when things get sticky, when things get to where we don't know what to do, don't know how to handle everything, things are beyond your control, doesn't he walk through the fire with you? He does. He does. So when they were removed, okay, not a single strand of hair was out of place, singed, burned, curled up from the heat, nothing. You You ever a kid and stuff, and you take your hand to stir and say, oh, I wonder what happens if you just let it on fire, then you put the heat next to it and it starts curling. Nothing. There wasn't even that. Okay? On top of that, their clothes were the same way. They were the same way coming out, if not better, because they were walking in the presence of the glory of God, than when they went in. And he's like, what is this? It doesn't even smell like fire. It doesn't smell like smoke. It doesn't smell like anything that's been burnt. It doesn't smell like any of that. Nothing melted, nothing scorched, no smell of any of that on them. Remember, the fiery furnace was heated up 7 times more than it was for anybody else. 7 times. Now, because of their Aman, okay, their trust in God that was so intense and so strong that they were immovable, the whole province of Babylon was caused to worship God. Because the king said, this is a true God. This is a true God. That he came into the fire and delivered them. So he ordered the whole province of Babylon to worship the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That's what he ordered. That was his new order. For all of them to bow and worship and praise God. So, now, if you want to know, Batah, okay, the story was Genesis 7. Okay. Hussah, the story was in Esther 2 and 4. Those 2 parts and stuff where, you know, she sought God's favor. She had God's favor. You know, God, it describes what God's favor was on her. And then it describes, you know, what happened afterwards. And then the Aman, okay, if you want to read the story, it's in Daniel 3. You can read through the whole thing, you know, what happened to them exactly. And that is Aman. They had surety in the strength of God. So they were immovable. Can you imagine knowing God that much? It all has to do with knowing God and being close to God and seeking Him. So, yeah, this one's a little bit short today, but I finally got to the part where we're supposed to get to. And I will prepare the other one and have it ready for next video. So I hope you guys enjoyed this message. I hope you understand that I'm trying to help you understand how to get to the point where you're free from fear. Because fear is bondage. Fear is a demon. And it has possessed my life for many, many years. Because I didn't know how to get out of it. And I don't want to leave you where you don't know how to get out of it. Because it is tough. It is hard to go through so many, many, many years where you can't get out of it. And it's a terrible thing. It is a terrible thing to go through. Anyways, like I said, I'm going to show you guys the information for Leslie Hill Teaching Center. You are losing if you do not go to this place at least once in your entire life. You have to visit both of the places once. Okay, if you come on Sunday, you get the service, you get lunch, and you get the tour. They do all 3 things. You can, you know, spend the whole morning over there and make it a whole family thing. Families are welcomed. You know, small children are welcome. We give them something to do where they can sit quietly in the service, because we do honor having quiet services. There are some people who travel countries. They travel across countries. They travel for hours and hours and hours across different states to come a long way to learn from this teaching that they have here. It is completely priceless. To this day, it is still positively affecting my life. With every message that I study and every message that I get into, it is positively affecting my life to the point where now I am at the point that I am learning about trusting in God and relying on God completely. You know, He has called me into doing this thing. Even though I was afraid for many years and I kind of ran from it, you know, He still kept tugging my heart, and He took time to show me that He can be my provider. You know, he did that step by step. And he's gotten me to the point where it's like he can remind me of all the things that he's provided for me. Things that are so stupid and insignificant. Things that are so insignificant, he provided anyway, just to let me know that he knows what I need and he can provide anything and everything that I need. Okay, my dogs have nothing to do with me doing this, and yet he provided for them. He gave me my cats. Me and my daughters are wanting cats also. We love animals. We have 4, 2 cats, 2 dogs. Okay? And you know what he did? He saved 2 specific cats for myself and my daughter. And he had them there. And literally, one of the cats literally looked at her and just reached her paw through the cage and was trying to reach for my daughter. My little one, Sarah. Because Jasmine wasn't with us at the time to go pick them up. I don't remember where she was. But we went to pick them up. And it did for a second look like we weren't going to get them. Because some wild stuff was happening. But God gave us favor with the workers. And he gave us those 2 adorable little cats. And they are so sweet. And they are so, like, they're babies. But we love them. And they're just the cutest and sweetest little things, and I love cats so much. They're so cute and they're adorable, and they let us hug them. And one of them is, oh, the one that picked Sarah, she picked Sarah. Okay, she's so loving and so affectionate, and anytime she's around us people, she wants to rub all over our legs. She'll come up, and if I'm doing this right now and she was out of where she's at, she would come up here to the couch. And she would be like right in my face, like this, and be like, meow. And she would wait. She'd be like, hey, give me attention. She does it at night too. When I'm going to lay down, like she'll come across my chest and put her face like right there and be like, meow, as loud as she can. Like, don't go to sleep. Give me attention first. You know, or she'll sit there and she'll curl herself up right on my neck, to the point where I can't move, and she'll just lay right there, and she'll think, oh, I'm going to just go to sleep right here, and no big deal. Yeah. She's so affectionate. And that's what my daughter was wanting. You know, God knew our hearts and what cats would be perfect for us, and both of them are perfect for us. You know, and both of them are very affectionate, but just Sarah's is more affectionate than mine. And they're just the sweetest things. And God gave us those cats. God worked that out for us. Just because we wanted to love animals. You know, if God worked, that has nothing to do with the ministry and what I'm called to do here. But he did it. Anyway, so he will provide. Okay? He has changed my life going to this place. And when I'm telling you, your life is going to be changed just attending, I'm telling you. Attend 3 months, 6 months, whatever. Attend as long as you want. Your life is going to be changed becoming a regular attending of this church. Okay? Anyways, here it is. That's the place. I'll put it right in front of each of the cameras so that you guys can see the address, the location. It has a Bible study, a 2-scale replica of the tabernacle in the wilderness. So make sure you go to this place. Call the number. If you can't make it on Sunday, call the number. Schedule a tour of both the Bible Museum and the Tabernacle. Do not miss out. You're doing yourself a grave injustice by not going to this place at least once in your life. Okay? So I just wanted to leave you guys with that. Have a wonderful day. Thank you guys for joining me on this video. You know, bear with me if I don't get to stay on task sometimes. I'm trying to allow God to be completely in control of what goes on here. So I love you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.